Royal Park as the site for the 2006 Commonwealth Games Village. The $400 million announcement made despite widespread opposition.
Premier Steve Bracks is obviously excited about the 1,000-unit village to be built at Royal Park by Australand. 800 units to be sold privately after the Games, 200 kept for public housing.
I mean, it's a real winner.
The developer gets the government land valued at $33 million for free, but the government expects to get back $58 million from its share of private sales after the 6,000 athletes and officials leave Melbourne.
I'm excited, and I think the athletes will be very happy with the end result.
And after the harsh lessons of the 1956 Olympic Games village at West Heidelberg, Mr Bracks says a mix of private and public housing can work.
No longer are we building enclave sites for public housing which are distinct and different and have a substandard attributes compared to other housing.
But the government faces union, local community and political opposition in trying to transform the old psychiatric site into a games village cum housing development. The electrical trades unions even banned the site.
This is a dumb place for a village. It is to the shame of the government.
Brendan Donahue, 7 News.
I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the Indigenous inhabitants of the land, to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional land of the Kulin Nation. This special place is now known by its European name of Melbourne, and today Melbourne is one of the great multicultural cities of the world, a significant meeting place. And I think it's very, very appropriate that we acknowledge that while it was a very significant meeting place for the Kulin Nation, they left without leaving a village behind them. I say, shame on you, Bracks, shame on you, Madden, shame on you, Batchelor, and your letter, and shame on you, Rod Walker.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on an issue that I've been very closely related to for some years now, and that is Royal Park. I've been actively involved in the management of Royal Park since 1976. And I grew up in West Parkville, and I know the area very well. But from the outset, I want to make the City of Melbourne's position very clear, because there have been attempts to misrepresent our view, and also just to maybe even fudge it in some way. But what is clear is that the Melbourne City Council does not support the location of the village on the psychiatric hospital site and surrounding land in Royal Park, northwest. So be clear, the City of Melbourne says no village. Psychiatric hospital site needs to be managed in a way where the existing heritage building can be respected and used, and also the buildings that are not of a heritage nature, that have some economic life, can be used in a responsible way. But we don't support a village of any sort. So why do we have this position of opposition? The council, and allow me to speak on behalf of the council if I may, but the council was concerned about the loss of parkland in the inner Melbourne area. And you think about it, there's been the hockey and netball centre in Royal Park, prime piece of land on the hill. The bitumen car park around the zoo, a large area. It costs the commissioners some $7 million to surface of ratepayers' funds. Various infringements on parkland around the Carlton Football and Social Club over an extended period. And of course, Albert Park, where there's been massive invasion of parkland to be used for uses other than that recreation, or passive recreation. It's got buildings and pit stops and all that sort of thing that we all know well. So the council says, okay, enough's enough. Governor Latrobe, when he planned the city, talked about a ring of parks around the city. And this area was part of the area that he identified for parkland. And we say we're entitled now to continue that philosophy and receive compensation for the loss. And the losses have been very, very significant, you'd all agree. So, what's new about it? Well, let's think about it. Originally, the psychiatric hospital side, as we generally know it, there's a little bit more in it. There's Milk Paringa in there and there's a few other little spots as well. Some 20 hectares was excised a temporary reservation, operative word temporary, for a psychiatric hospital site. So one would conclude that at the end of the use of the psychiatric hospital site, it would revert back to its intended use. And while 70 years ago it was underutilised, it was isolated, yes, but you've got to understand the history of the park. And there's also a principle established in the park. For many of you, you'd remember Royal Park being a massive army base during the Second World War, Camp Pell. I remember the aftermath as a kid, when people lived in the huts and this and huts through the park. But it was taken over as a wartime measure. And at the end of the war, it was progressively handed back to the council for administration as a park.
Thank you very much. And I'm speaking today for the Royal Park Protection Group and for an informal coalition of groups of residents, community, union, environment, which we've termed the Victorian Coalition for Green Games 2006, to explain the broad-based community opposition to location of the Games Village, either the Games Village or a large residential development on the Royal Park Hospital site. Our position has been developed as supporting Green Games 2006, supporting location of the Games Village on an appropriate site, and opposing the Games Village or any residential development, large residential development on the Royal Park Hospital site. Running concurrently with our campaign about the Royal Park Hospital site has been a campaign for Green Games. And the principle has been that you can't have ecologically sustainable green games if you're chopping down 1,000 trees and building a village on a green site. It doesn't stand for reason. So I'd just like to spell out our vision for the Royal Park Hospital site, which is consistent with the view of the City of Melbourne. The site was once part of Royal Park. It has only ever been temporarily reserved, as Councillor Chamberlain said, for the Royal Park Hospital, and must be returned to parkland. Latrobe's vision of a green circling belt of parks is now increasingly at risk, as Councillor Chamberlain has said. And he's also touched on the fact that Royal Park suffered over the years from excision of land for car parks and for the Stanley Royal Park Centre. Royal Park, the Royal Park Hospital site was parkland and open space, and it must be retained as park in the future. So, our point is that the parkland surrounds have to be retained and reintegrated into Royal Park, and the Heritage Hospital buildings restored for a comprehensive mental health centre involving training, rehabilitation and research. Now, this addresses the use of the future use of the site of the buildings. It has the backing of leading psychiatrists and the Health and Community Services Union. We were established in September '96 specifically hockey and netball and for the village. And our key objective has been, as well as to protect and regenerate and conserve Royal Park for future generations, is to oppose alienation of parkland by government, commercial, sporting and other bodies, and to ensure public access consistent with the terms of the original terms of reference of the establishment of Royal Park. Ron Walker said in The Age that no one opposed the location of the village on the Royal Park Hospital site when the bid was first signed. You are wrong, Ron. We did. Melbourne signed a contract in October '96 nominating Melbourne as Australia's candidate for hosting the 2006 Commonwealth Games. Ron Walker said then it would be located on the Royal Park Hospital site, no public consultation, no planning, no environmental or heritage assessment. Ron Walker refused to have stood in his office on the top floor of the Rialto Tower and picked out all the sites for the village visible from the building. Albert Park, Royal Park, Melbourne Park and Yellow Park. Apparently Princes Park wasn't within his view because somehow it escaped.
An author, an internationally renowned spokesman for green ideals, so please welcome Senator Bob Brown.
Thanks, Rod. It's lovely to be here with the community in an election campaign which has to be about community. You wouldn't think so these days because so much of it's so slick, so much of it's so well spun, so much of it's choreographed for television and quick messages, and therefore so much gets overlooked. But I just want to say a few words about the coming week. It is very important to this land that we're gathered on today. I've heard already this morning somebody say, a member of the government told a community group during the week, doesn't matter what you do, this development is going ahead. Pamela Kerr was talking to me about that. Well, didn't I hear that time and time and time again from the Grey government in Tasmania over the Franklin Dam? They actually got to move in the bulldozers there and said, and where are they now? The river's still running free to the sea. So don't get disheartened by bombast coming from government spokespeople. Community can and will make that government think again. And election campaigns are a litmus. They might want Royal Park off the agenda, but Royal Park is on the agenda. What's more, it's a litmus of what this government and this opposition is about. This is a government that says it wants to curb global warming, but we're giving the tick to 2 more brown coal-fired power stations and maybe another 2 in the wings as well, and we're going to expand massively the worst generator of greenhouse gases, which is brown coal. This is a government which says we're concerned about biodiversity and we're concerned about forests, and moreover we're going to put lots of money into helping people put tanks in because we're now concerned about water. And they're going to go and log the catchments of Melbourne's own water system at a cost of hundreds of millions of dollars in retained water and more polluted water as a result. There's a muddled thinking there, and what it comes down to is this. Petra Kelly said this so many years ago about the old social democratic parties which have lost the real meaning of both those words. And that is they put on their green spots in the run to elections and they shed them straight after. And Bronwyn Pike, I shared a platform with her outside Parliament House some years ago on industrial relations before she was elected to Parliament. And she's a really nice, warm-hearted human being. But as Rod said, if returned, she's part of the machine which is going to build this economic proposition where we are. She will vote for it. And vote for what? A piece of legislation which at the outset said any protests which get out of hand are banned. Somebody said, did Steve Bracks really expect he couldn't have known that he was going to get community reaction? He knew at the outset. So did the opposition which backed it. They built in the provision which said, if the community reacts to this maldevelopment, we're going to have built in here punishing anti-civil liberties, anti-right to peaceful protest provisions which will get those citizens and knock them out of the way in the interest of Australand from somewhere else. Is that social democracy? Do we accept that? Of course we don't. And you know, there was another bicycle rider in this quasi-environmental protest, this greenwash protest I saw going down the street, which had a sign up saying Bracks Acts. A-C-T-S, not A-X-E, which it should have been. Steve Bracks again, your quintessential nice bloke. But look what's in the saddlebag. And I sometimes think it's better to have a Kennett. You know where you stand, rather than having a Kennett Light where you don't know where you stand and can be fooled by the presentation. It's very, very, very quirky politics. But when you're a citizen who's confronted with an impending loss, change to neighbourhood, change to environment, change to community structure, abandonment of proper planning principle to the big end of town, there's got to be better alternatives. And there are. This is a crucial week. This is a litmus issue. This is not going to be the end of the matter. But if I can, and I welcome our Democrat friends who feel the same way here today. But can I say this? If, and it's a tough if, Greens do get in to the Legislative Assembly and or the Legislative Council next Saturday, they will provide a voice in the floor on the floor of the Parliament in Spring Street, which will take it to Steve Bracks and or Mr Doyle in the coming months and years, as they should be taken to, over the protection of Royal Park, all the way, unremitting. Take it right to them on the floor of democracy where it should be. We do it in the Senate, they do it in the Tasmanian House and elsewhere, and they'll do it in Spring Street. I salute your courage. This is right. This issue must not be taken off the agenda. I will support this fight to keep this territory as it is for the community, not just up to next Saturday, but in the months and years ahead. I wish you all strength so that you too can see it through to victory and the protection of this area, not just for us, but for generations to come. Thanks, everybody.
Cost twice as much as originally thought, but the government says it's now capped the taxpayer contribution.
With Commonwealth Games preparations in full swing, the government has finally released details of a massive cost blowout. 5 years ago, Victorian taxpayers were told they'd have to contribute $350 million. That's now doubled to $697 million. In a bid to rein in the blowout and minimise the political fallout, the government's promising it won't be forking out any more cash.
If there is extra resources required, they have to be found from within other arrangements, revenue throws, ticket sales, sponsorship, or the budget has to be trimmed.
The government claims the original cost estimate was unrealistic and that extra costs like beefed-up security, have added to the blowout. Overall, the Games budget is expected to be $1.1 billion, with a federal government contribution, ticket sales and sponsorship to top up the state government contribution.
I must say that we've been overwhelmed with sponsors because of the tremendous gain they got during the Olympics.
The government's insisting that even with the increased price tag, the Games will be good for Victoria.
It will generate some $2 billion of economic benefit for the Victorian economy.
What I don't want to find is that we wake up on the morning after the Commonwealth Games and have a black hole hangover.
There we go, thank you very much. At last, I don't have to be the nemesis. Ladies and gentlemen,
the way in which the government will use that legislation. Because, as many of you will know, on this site there are a number of buildings. When this site will be used as a Commonwealth Games village, for the next 10 years, this is going to be the site of a residential housing development. And forevermore, this public parkland is going to be turned into a high-value, high-cost residential development. We'll lose this public parkland, the developers will benefit, the state government through its revenue sharing arrangement will benefit, but the people of this area will lose out, and they're doing it under the guise of a Commonwealth Games village when for only 3 weeks in the next 10 years the Commonwealth Games will be here. It's a smokescreen that the government have created. It's wrong. The Liberal Party opposes it and will continue to oppose it. And I'm here today to show this community that you have the support of the Liberal Party in opposing the way the government is going about this project, and we will continue to do so.
Construction is set to begin in a fortnight.
Maintaining the rage in the face of the bulldozers. Royal Park supporters accusing the Bracks government of betrayal for its surprise demolition of historic buildings to make way for Commonwealth Games athletes.
We were pretty shocked. It's really an act of vandalism, we thought. I think if ordinary citizens were involved, then the police would be after them, in my view.
The Sports Minister defends clearing the old Royal Park Psychiatric Institute site to allow work to start this month on the 2006 Games Village.
We're happy and satisfied that we've taken appropriate measures in relation to any of the heritage issues on the site.
But critics say the former Carlton ruckman has preempted the umpire's decision, with a National Trust appeal yet to be heard. One of the buildings demolished was the former research laboratory of Dr. John Cade, the internationally acclaimed psychiatrist who in the 1940s discovered lithium as a treatment for manic depression.
That building should have been a memorial to him and to the history of psychiatry in Victoria.
The Minister says Heritage Victoria gave the green light for its demolition because it couldn't be restored, but 9 of the site's 14 buildings will be saved.
There are some of heritage significance. We are retaining those buildings and recognising the value of that site as part of the Games Village development.
The village is due to be finished in 2005 and will be converted to public housing and apartments after the Games. Gareth Boreham, 10 News.
But last night, bulldozers moved in, destroying a treasured part of the Royal Park Psychiatric Hospital.
There was going to be an appeal hearing in 2 weeks' time, and we would have waited till the umpire spoke about whether the building should be protected or not.
Lobbyists say an appeal to Heritage lists the entire precinct was the only way to save the building, but argue the process wasn't given a chance.
Well, I think, the government has probably known that it should have been a heritage-listed building and got in before the fair process could be followed.
Built in 1906, the lobby group maintains the central administrative building was both historically and socially significant Inside it was the office of John Cade, the inventor of lithium. And while the government has defended its decision,
it was, in a sense, bastardised to the point where it was not able to be refurbished or regenerated.
It's admitted more could have been done to save it.
Well, I think there was some consideration that might have been worked through over 3 weeks.
9 other buildings that are part of the precinct will be retained. Karen Tan, 7 News.
Royal Park residents gathered today to voice their anger over the demolition of an historic building on the old hospital site. They claim the proposed site for the Commonwealth Games Athletes Village is nothing more than property development in disguise.
When the population comes in, where will the recreation land be? Where will the park land be?
The protesters have accused the government of ignoring appeals to have some buildings heritage listed so the site could be cleared. Felling of trees at the Commonwealth Games Athletics Village site in Parkville has sparked an angry reaction. Workers have begun clearing the 20-hectare site, removing a number of large trees.
You can't have green games if you're going to clear fell the whole of the Games Village site.
Heritage listing for the remaining buildings is believed to be imminent. The village is due for completion in 2005 and will be converted to apartments and public housing after the Games.